Hello students. After reading this module, you shall be able to appreciate that the experience of emotions is partly learnt, experience of emotions across culture, Eastern perspective on emotions, difference in experience of emotions between Eastern and Western culture, shame and guilt. In our day-to-day lives, we experience a variety of emotions, from sadness and agony to joy and ecstasy. Emotions are deeply part of our lives. Each of us experience different emotions in different contexts, in response to different stimulus. Our experience of emotions largely depends upon our appraisal of situations depending upon our prior experiences. These prior experiences, on the other hand, derive from the norms and the culture of one's community in which one lives. Not only the experience of emotions differ from one culture to another, but more so the expression of emotions differ amongst different cultures. One can propose that experience of emotions could be a part of our learning of cultural values and norms. Culture and emotions. Cultures differ with respect to basic values it upholds and various practices and norms established for the purpose of meaning making. Through various socialization processes, we learn to comprehend other behavior and expected behavior from us. Along the same time, we also learn the cultural expectation of emotions from us. Various cultures provide us with display rules, as suggested by Ekman and Friesen in 1975, as unwritten codes which govern the way emotions may be expressed. One internalizes different rules depending upon the culture, gender, and class. For example, a display rule, form women gender in India, prescribes to be soft, polite, and hold on to one's lajja. Cultural script, Miyamoto and Riff 2011 are provided by different communities to its members through cultural norms to regulate the expression of emotions. It guides the member to regulate their emotions in different contexts and indirectly governs the experience of emotions. To contrast cultural scripts of Western and Eastern culture, the former emphasizes on maximizing positive emotions and minimizing negative emotions, whereas the latter talks about maintaining a balance and going on middle path to find joy in unhappiness. This difference could attribute back to the different norms and values held by Western and Eastern cultures. Culture and emotional experience. Cultures grow out of shared experiences of members of a group and have implications for experience of emotions. A group that values collectivism would suppress emotions of anger and rebellion. Social norms and other rules provide people a prescription of how to feel in different situations like marriage, funeral, etc., as suggested by Hochschild in 1983. The culture would also define the emotions experienced depending upon the value it attaches to various emotions. Taking the example of universal emotion of happiness. In individualistic societies, happiness would be derived from personal success and growth, and in a collectivistic society, happiness would be derived by serving the group and affiliating with others. The coexistence model by Sinha and Tripathi also suggests that in India, contrary emotions mutually coexist. For example, one would find joy by sharing resources of the group, but also feel jealousy and envy towards other members of not possessing it completely. Culture and emotion regulation. Interpersonal relationship of how people relate to each other depends upon the cultural norm of emotion regulation, which is taught early in life. Members of different cultures employ different emotional regulation strategies. Researchers have found that American mothers tend to focus on child success and use remarks to upgrade the positive emotions. On the other hand, in Japanese culture, it is seen that mothers tend to focus on disciplining their children and use remarks which tend to down-regulate emotions. Marcus and Kitayama in 1991 suggested that in Western culture, parents encourage expression of emotions and view expression of emotions is integral to well-being. In Eastern cultures, emotional expression of an individual is discouraged and only emotions which value relationships are found appropriate to express. Emotional perception and recognition. Different cultures perceive different contexts differently. Members of collectivistic culture have a decontextualized self and use context to interpret appropriate response. One uses facial expressions and non-verbal cues to recognize emotions as found in Western culture. In Japanese culture, in addition to interpreting emotions with the aid of non-verbal cues and facial expressions, would additionally look for contextual cues to recognize emotion. Understanding emotions through Eastern perspective. Ras theory of emotions. On looking at various Sanskrit and Buddhist religious texts, one sees emotions or the bhav as life itself. The one who is alive is the one who experiences emotions. The Hindu philosophers who tried to understand emotions suggested that around 8 to 9 primary emotions, that is, sthai bhav, exist. The 8 basic emotions are as follows: sexual passion or love or delight, amusement, laughter and humor, sorrow, anger, fear or terror, perseverance, energy or heroism, disgust or disillusion, and amusement or wonder. The 9th emotion of serenity or calm is noted in some texts. Each of the emotion has its various shades, that is ras. Associated with it is ras theory of emotions. The understanding of emotions in India drew from Rasadhya chapter of Natya Shastra, a book on drama which dates back to 3rd or 5th century AD. Drama represents our various psychological and emotional states and is considered as aesthetic experience. The ras or bhav is the emotion one experiences which evoked by the performer. Schweder and Haidt in 2000 write, "The Rasadhya is a narrative of the causes, consequences, and concomitants of the 8 basic emotional states and the most effective means via facial expressions, voice, posture, setting, character, action, and psychological response of their representatives in the theatre." The approach in Rasadhya is that the emotion, that is, love, sorrow, astonishment, etc., is not separate or independent from the conditions it derives from the somatic and affective events, from the response it demands. An emotion is an entire and complete story of all components. For example, the somatic event of pain and the affective event of emptiness, plus the interpretation of a prior event of death of a relative, an implication for self, that is of loss, and a plan of action for oneself would lead to maybe an emotion of sorrow. The experience of ras is thus the result of union of three interrelated elements: Vibhav, Anubhav and Vyabhikari bhav and Sthai bhav. Vibhav. It refers to the determinants by which an emotion is activated. There are two kinds of Vibhav, the Alambhana Vibhav and Uddipana Vibhav. The Alambhana Vibhav is the person or the object with respect to whom the emotion is experienced, and its appearance is responsible directly for bringing forth the emotion. And the Uddipana Vibhav is the situation in the environment in which that person or object is placed, and which facilitates the experience of emotions. Anubhav refers to the overt manifestation brought by the Vibhavas. Anubhav can be divided into Vaikekika, and the one expressed by words and the one expressed by bodily expressions are called Angika. Sattvika bhavas, also known as the involuntary emotions, are also there and are Stambh, that is paralysis; Vipatu, that is trembling; Vavarna, changes in the color of one's face; Shvet, that is sweating; Romanka, that is hair standing on end; Swarabhet, that is changes in one's tone of voice; Asru, becoming tearful; and Pralay, that is fainting. Vyabhikari bhavas. The Sthai bhava, a major emotion, is formed by a number of minor feelings called Vyabhikari bhavas, which are Nirveda, that is disinterest; Glani, that is tiredness; Sanka, that is apprehension; Asuya, that is insecurity; Harsha, that is sudden delight; Avega, that is excitement; Jadata, that is stupor; Garv, arrogance; Visada, that is depression; Mad, that is intoxication; Shram or exhaustion; Alasya, that is lethargy; Dainya, that is pity; Chinta, that is anxiety; and Moh, that is illusion; Smriti, that is recollection; Dhriti, that is steadfastness; Vridha, that is shame; Kapalita, that is impulsiveness; Otsuka, that is longing; Nidra, that is sleep; Apasmara, that is epilepsy; Supta, that is dreaming; Vibodh, that is awakening; Amarsa, that is restrained anger; Avahita, that is deception; Ugrata, that is ferociousness; Mati, that is analysis; Vyadhi, that is sickness; Unmad, that is temporary insanity; Marna, that is death; Tras, that is panic; and Vitarka, that is argumentativeness. For example, the erotic rasa occurs from the Alabhana Vibhav, the presence of the lover and the beloved; the situation or the Uddipana Vibhav, the atmosphere of the place where they meet, the rain, soft breeze, etc. It gives rise to the Anubhava, how the lover and beloved express themselves to each other, that is, holding hands, embracing, etc. It produces involuntary bodily response, the Sattvika bhavas, and give rise to corresponding emotional states, the Vyabhikari bhavas. The Buddhist perspective on emotions. In Buddhist perspective, like a psychologist believes that emotions influence one's thoughts and actions. The Buddhist practice emotional control and emotional regulation. It rejects the path of temporary pleasure gained from fulfilling short-term goals and emphasizes on long-term enduring happiness. The Buddhism view sukh or happiness and dukh or sorrow as both part of human life. Suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to enjoy. Regard both suffering and joy as facts of life. Sukh is not just an emotion but an enduring trait. a state of calmness and satisfaction. Buddhism lays emphasis on how to control negative emotions of hatred and jealousy and to free one of these emotions so that one could live free of suffering. This is facilitated by awareness of one's true nature and reality. Buddhism, through concepts of 10 worlds and their mutual possession, states that all emotional experiences are within one and are interrelated. Anger exists in all, but the manifestation differs. One could use anger constructively for welfare of others. It holds that hatred is considered as the source of mental distress and detrimental for one who experiences it. It emphasizes on understanding one's inner state through meditation and training that could lead to an experience of a state of absolute happiness than relative happiness. According to the Buddhist view, relative happiness is dependent on external environment and is short-lived. True happiness is absolute happiness, which is unperturbed by external conditions and thus lie within. Buddhism talks about joy of sharing happiness with others and forming chain of happy people. Each individual have potential to derive this state of absolute happiness from the source within. Greed and anger are considered as poisons that pollute our mind state and sway us from the path of happiness. Buddhism lays emphasis on middle path. It doesn't talk about abandoning our life in search of happiness, but to find happiness in the place one is by practicing mindfulness. Cravings are not rejected but are used as a source of enlightenment by few Buddhist scholars. Experience of shame and guilt in different cultures. Shame and guilt are used interchangeably in different situations. However, shame and guilt are different and distinct emotions. Both these emotions belong to the category of self-conscious emotions, the emotions resulting from evaluation of one's self-worth. Shame is a self-oriented emotion, whereas guilt is related to others. Lewis in 1992 provided us with a framework to understand the difference between shame and guilt by evaluating standards, rules, and goals. All of us have an understanding what is acceptable from others and what is expected from us. Shame is thus experienced where the failure is attributed to global self. For example, if one fails an exam, one could attribute failure to lack of hard work or make assumption that one is not worthy and is not intelligent, followed by hopelessness. The latter would result in emotion of shame. The former, however, would result in emotion of guilt, where the attribution of failure is made not to entire self, but as specific to a particular part of ability. It is believed that since shame involves global judgment, it is difficult to rid oneself of this negative emotion. Benedict gave the term shame culture and guilt culture. According to him, Japanese as a shame culture and America as a guilt culture, this could be reasoned to the cultural understanding of the two countries. The Eastern and Western culture differs on the basic values of human nature and conduct. Western culture focuses on the individual who is responsible for his success and is free to actualize personal growth. In Eastern culture, on the other hand, the focus is on holding group identity as one is part of many groups. To maintain group loyalty and cohesiveness in group, high moral standards govern the behavior of members. This results in emotion of shame predominant in Japan and other Eastern cultures, where any deviance from group norms or expected standards may result in experience of shame. Understanding lajja, an emotion in Indian context. Experience of lajja is very special and unique to Indian culture. It has various translations in terms of different emotions of loyalty, shame, shyness, etc., depending on the context in which it is used. Lajja is not just an emotion but a moral state. Though both men and women possess lajja, it's a gender-biased emotion. Narratives suggest that women gender experiences or is expected to experience this emotion in greater quality and quantity. Experience of lajja could be understood as experience of being graceful and well-mannered. One who possesses lajja is the one who behaves in civilized manner as per the community norms. Lajja is considered important to maintain social harmony and helps in regulating one's emotions. Lajja is a complex emotion whose experience and interpretation depends upon the context. It has a positive connotation in Indian context whose experience and possession is appreciated in the society. Summary. Understanding experience and expression of emotion is partly learned through cultural scripts that differ across cultures. Emotions in Eastern culture depend upon the contextual cues along with facial expressions and other non-verbal cues. Ra's theory of emotions suggests that experience of emotion is a complete package of various components of vibhav, anubhav, sthai bhav and vyabhikari bhav. Buddhism talks on both sukha and dukh as part of life, and happiness lies in the source within. Shame and guilt are self-conscious emotions which differ in attribution of failure to grow global or specific self and are culturally dominant in different communities. Lajja is unique emotion found in South Asian society which has a positive connotation of shame and shyness attached to it.